Yeah.
Hey. Good evening, and welcome to Get Moving. Here with Doc Griggs on blackdoctor.org. I am Ellis Dean, co-host of this program, and we are welcome here. And this is a show that is focused on men and men's health. And so we are really talking about men because we need men to get checked, get fit, get moving. So if you are a female, you're watching the show, please stay and tell your husbands, your uncles, your sons, everybody to watch this program or share it with them. Also, if you have any questions about your men or men's health or what men do, please drop those in the comment section. And we also like to know where you're watching us from. So also drop that in the comment section, wherever you're watching from. Tonight, we want you to put your city, and we also want you to put your area code. So we want audiences in all different area codes. So I'm gonna give you area code a shout out too. So drop in your city and your area code. That is for today. So I am Ellis. I am in Atlanta. Area code is 770 where I'm at, or 404, depending upon if you are an original Atlantan. So
what's funny, folks, is he says that proudly. Yeah. Is it 28-3? Is there a 2-8 and a 3 there?
I think it's 2022, and we have moved on from there. Okay.
Folks, this is Doc Griggs. I'm in New Orleans, the 504, and of course, we have a love-hate relationship with Atlanta. We want to talk about how blood pressure. Well, you see it. Their blood pressure goes up when we come in town, and ours goes down because it's all gravy, baby.
You know what? All I have to do is say pass interference, and I can get a New Orleans fan.
Now, why you got to talk?
See, so it goes both ways.
I'm just saying. Why you talking about why you got to talk about real stuff? I mean, we have something to do, man. New York in the house. What's your area code?
Brooklyn. 646. I see you. All right, keep them coming. We like to get it. We'll give you a shout out and get you up on the screen. But today's show is, let me put the dates up. I got it up here. I got it ready to go. Today's topic is the big piece of chicken.
Oh,
why men overeat. And so we're going to talk specifically about men, but this can be applicable to women, but there are some things that aren't. So we're going to talk about specifically those things as when we get to our reasoning as to why men overeat. Some of those things aren't applicable to women, and you're going to find out why. So just stick with us as we talk about it. But if y'all remember a few years ago, Chris Rock did a bit as far as his comedy sketches, that men just, when you get to be the man of the household and you get to be the guy in your own home, you get the big piece of chicken, right? Yes. You know, when I was growing up as a little kid, and when mom was fried for a whole, get that whole fried at 8 pieces, you got 2 legs and 2 wings and 2 thighs and 2 breasts. You knew one of them breasts was already accounted for, right? Yes. So that was Dad's big piece of chicken. And he might throw down a couple other pieces, but you know he was gonna get the biggest piece of that chicken. You had to wait for him to get it first, just wait for him to pull it off, and then you could take what was left. And so men have that tendency to, we want that big piece of chicken, we strive for that big piece of chicken, but there's also other reasons. So let's just kind of talk about, what is that mentality? What does the big piece of chicken mentality come from, Doc?
So, traditionally, particularly in our culture, we didn't have much to give other than ourselves, and we would express love in different ways. So more meant more love, more meant appreciation in the traditional household that we grew up in, that thank you for providing for the family. Thank you for working so hard. It was, and that it transcended. It transcended just family. I mean, just in the community. It happens now down here in New Orleans. If people like you, they really love you. Eat some more. They'll give, instead of one scoop, they give you 2, 3, 10, because they want to show its care and affection. So much so, like you said yourself, as a little kid, you couldn't wait to get old enough to get the biggest piece of chicken and be served first.
Absolutely. And it's funny how that gets passed down from generation to generation, right? So especially now we're getting closer. We're in October. Next month is Thanksgiving, and we talk about the big table, right? So when you became an adult, you wanted to sit at the big table. Can't be at the card table on the side. Sitting on the couch, balancing the plate, because there's no more, sitting on the fireplace, and you got to plate one hand and the fork and knife the other. You wanted to get a seat at the big table, and you wanted to be able to get served first and get as much turkey and dressing and everything you want, because it was okay, because you had earned that right as being one of the elder men in the family. And so that you look forward to those days. And you say, you know what, when I got to be old enough and grown enough, as they say,
Yeah.
started piling that plate up bigger and bigger just to represent my masculinity in
You know,
space.
Ellis, somehow I feel like we all grew up in the same house. You go over to auntie's house that had the clear plastic on the couch, on the furniture with the runner. Yeah. I feel it.
We had the runners in the house, right? The carpet runners in the house. And my mom would make me go outside and clean them every once in a while.
Right.
I like to protect. There's just some traditions that are universal, the universal kind of shared Black experience, and overeating that big piece of chicken was part of it. But there's some consequences to that, so we're going to talk about that. But let's lean into some of the reasonings why. So we've got a little graphic here that we created, and we're going to talk about some of these main reasonings why. And this has been researched. This is just not us making it up. This has been researched, and so here are some of the main reasons why men tend to overeat. That first reason is to impress women, right? And so they did some studies and they found that men tend to eat more when they're dining with women versus when they're dining with other men. And I don't know what that is that's an expression of masculinity. We wanted to show whomever the women that are around us that we're with, that we can do this, we can overindulge. But even when we're eating salads, we eat more salad when we're eating with women than we do when we're with men. So
that also it can be attributed to that same imprinting that we saw as kids, right? Mm-hmm. Like, so we would leave we might not eat the big piece of chicken at home, but when we're out with our boys, we're playing, we wanted to eat the most because it was a sign of dominance and that I'm big, I'm a big boy, I'm maturing, and it carries over. We take it with us. And as you can see with these others, it can be bad for us ultimately.
Yeah. So other reasonings for men, why men overeat, there's an overeating disorder, and that's more of a mental disorder. So some of those things could be attributed to stress and anxiety, depression. People that are depressed or have anxiety tend to overeat.
Binge eating. Oh, I'm going to hurt myself. You know what? I'm just going to eat till I get sick.
Right. And we saw that there was a lot of significant overeating during the pandemic. You're home, you're stressed, you had no outlet, you can't go anywhere, and there was a lot of that COVID-15. I used to call it the COVID-19 just to keep it consistent.
COVID-50.
But people put on weight during the pandemic, and I'm sure there's a lot of men in that. Food is a reward, right? And so it goes along that big piece of chicken mentality is food is a reward. So, hey, I'm a man, I'm a provider. If you're a provider for your home, I deserve some good food as a reward for me, living my life and handling my function.
And typically, if you think about it, you want to go out, hey, Ellis, we're going to go out, let's get a good steak. And we go get big, gargantuan, Neanderthalish dinosaur steak, dinosaur legs. And we eat and we kind of check each other. If he's eating more, I'm going to eat more. And I mean, it's just almost like a competition, but it's a celebration of the fact that we can afford it. And it can, that big piece of chicken, that big steak can ultimately kill us.
It can, right? And so, if you think about like the cartoons that we grew up with, the Flintstones, and they'd have that big Brontosaurus burger and that car would tilt over and you're like, ooh. And even they're conditioning us as children to eat big, and you want that. I don't want just a regular ribeye. I need the tomahawk ribeye. that looks good because it's got that bone. And when I got my first tomahawk ribeye, I thought immediately of that Fred Flintstone. Right. And I said, I got the Fred Flintstone. And that's what I called it. I got the Fred Flintstone ribeye on my plate.
So let me tell you, man. So I was actually in Atlanta. Went to a buddy of mine, went to a Brazilian steakhouse. Not a buddy, but my cousin. My first cousin. We went to a Brazilian steakhouse where you have the cards and they turn it over. And like it's like a meat buffet, right? Yeah. As long as your card is on green, you get. He was so excited and he ate so much that he ended up with a kidney stone. We will eat ourselves to sickness enjoying a meal.
You got the meat sweats and all of that.
Man, popping that belt, that button on your belt and your jeans to sit back and then to go back. I need to make some room, and we're miserable. We're miserable, but guess what? We do it again the next time the opportunity presents itself.
Absolutely, because the way he probably recalls that it was fantastic. I had that kidney stone, but you know what? It was a fantastic meal. It was great. I get it. Another reason is indifference, right? The indifference. What does that mean? Like we see indifference. It just means we don't care, right? We'll eat that bag of chips, and not just I'm not talking about the snack size bag. I'm talking about the big boy bag, just because you're not worried about it. We'll eat the pint of ice cream. We'll just keep eating. You're like, hey, you're just complete indifference. So and that's dangerous, right? Because when we get indifferent, that can be unhealthy, and that can lead to health problems down the line.
We talked about it in a previous show, though. We talked about those of us that were former athletes, right? You get to a point where you realize that you've just lost the battle. That six-pack is now a keg, or it was a party ball, and now it's a keg. You look like a nothing like what you used to at the top of your conditioning. You think, forget it, I'm just going to be fat anyway. And how many times have you heard guys say, man, everybody got to die something. I'm going to enjoy this. So they just go ham. They go in. And sadly, we go out a lot of times because of it.
Exactly. And the statistics bear it out. Men have especially black men have a shorter lifespan. And there's other factors to that. But I think overeating is key in terms of that indifference. Eating out too much is another one that was stated. And so this comes from, it could lead to, like, if you found some success in your life, you feel like you deserve it. Or if you're really just kind of overworked, right? You don't feel like you don't have time to go home and cook a good meal. Hey, I can eat out, I can afford it, I eat out. And then we don't realize that there's a lot of hidden sugars, a lot of hidden sodium in foods. The plate size, the portion sizes are way bigger when you go eat at a restaurant. Because any of y'all, I'll call out the place. If you ever been to Papa Do's, you know that.
Man, don't kill Papa Do's. Oh, bro. Oh.
I'm calling them out. I'm just calling them out. Because black folks, we love some Papa Do's. If you ever been to Papa Do's on Sunday, you know some black folks love some Papa Do's. I'm keeping it 100 right here on this show. Okay, we love some Papa Do's, and y'all see the plates. They bring it out grown, and we say man style plates.
We call no. You're about to say a grown man plate. That's the problem. That's what we're talking about today. The big piece of chicken, the big grown man with the grown man plate. And now, once the plate comes, you're in it now, right? You cannot let your table down. You don't want to be called out. You got to eat every bit of it, to the point that you have to call an Uber because you forgot your car is parked outside because you're so full you can't think. Yes, grown man plate.
Grown man plate, right? And then also think about it, like some of us that grew up with less than, we'll just call it that. You've been conditioned to clean your plate, right? And so they bring you that big oversized plate full of food, and you think about grandma and mama said, you need to clean your plate. And so you're going to overeat just to satisfy whatever that conditioning that we've had as children.
Or not get popped in the head with a back of the head with a wooden spoon and had a plate served to you the next morning for breakfast. I'm sorry.
You're having a flashback right now.
Sorry. I don't want no more green beans, Grandma. I don't want no more green beans.
For me, it was broccoli casserole, and I love broccoli now. But as a kid, I hated broccoli casserole, and my mom would make it. It felt like every Sunday. Some broccoli casserole was jumping out, and I was like, "Why, Jesus?" And she bring it out again, and I would sit there, and she was like, "You can't get up from that table to eat that broccoli casserole." And I would do the spread out, you know the spread out.
Yeah, try to
and she would just come and scrape it back all together.
Even the garbage can inspection. She would actually inspect the garbage can. What are you doing, lady? That is gross. Leave it alone. Nobody wants it.
It was a struggle. Yeah, okay, I'm having a flashback. I said, "Whoo, I got to get back in the show." All right. So finally, another reason for overeating by men is distractions, right? So we talk about distractions. It could be like it's football season, right? So you're watching the game. You got a bag of chips. You don't plan to eat the whole bag of chips, but you're not focusing on how much you're consuming. So you do eat the whole bag of chips. You order some wings. You order way too many wings. And next thing you know, you're eating all the wings. Or you're in a restaurant and you're having that third, fourth, fifth beer because you're just distracted and you're in the moment and you're either there or you're watching it from home. You're watching a program. Any of those things, distractions can cause us to overeat in a very significant way.
Yeah, it gets you every single time. Tell me it hadn't been. What about the movies and the big bucket of popcorn? The entire bucket with all of the butter. Yeah, the entire bucket. All those things is stuff that we don't pay attention to because we turn off the signal. We tend to ignore. There's we have these satiety hormones like ghrelin and leptin. They regulate our hunger and our satiety. We tend to just ignore the fact that our body's saying, "Okay, that's enough. Okay, that's enough." What happens is we assess whether our body is healthy enough to stand one instance of overeating, and we end up paying for it later. I don't know. I mean, this is a show of transparency. I have had several occasions where I've been awakened in the middle of the night and not been very happy with my earlier self for eating so much food. Miserable. Like a kid with a tummy ache. Yeah, miserable.
And as you get older, your body, like when you're younger, and this is one of those things that we're going to talk about this in future shows about how we need to change our eating habits and our exercise habits as we get older. So that's a future program. But as we get older, our body can't process that food. Like when we're younger, our metabolism is much higher. We're much more active, because we would go pick up basketball all day, minute, and then you're playing sports. You're athletes, so you're playing sports, so you're burning a tremendous amount of calories from practices and games and things like that. And so therefore, you can eat larger amounts and not have it impact your weight and your health as much as you do as you get older. But as you get older and you stop playing as much and you become less and less active over time, but your mind still says, "Oh, I can eat that." Remember, I used to eat the whole double burger with extra large fried.
Yeah. No, a whole large pizza. When we'd order 2 for $1, you'd have one, I'd have one. And if you finished before I did, man, I would have to guard my pizza like this because you'd eat that too.
Oh, the challenge, it was like a beacon. 4 words, all you can eat. We would find those restaurants that had that out front. It was like a challenge. They might have just a challenge because people like. I remember I got kicked out of an all-you-can-eat spot. It was
what?
It was an all-you-can-eat. They did all-you-can-eat like barbecue chicken on like a Tuesday when I was in college. And me and a couple of my friends, and it was like, back then it was only like $8 to $10. So we went, and I sat there, and I literally ate 2 whole chickens. And I ate 2 entire chickens, and finally the server came out and said, "Sir, I can't serve you anymore food."
Wait, you got cut off? You got cut off?
Like, cut me off. She said she's like, you can't do that anymore. Like we're not serving you any more chicken. Like they realized that the value that they were getting out of that all you could eat of us coming in was not getting with because I was tearing it up, and I was like, yeah.
Now, so back, kind of winging back to the topic. Did you pay for it at all the next day? At all? Did you even feel it?
Not then. I was in my late teens, early 20s at that time, so I wasn't feeling any of that. And I was with some of my male friends, and so that was the badge of courage. I ate the most chicken, and so that was it. So really that mentality that we really, and we're talking about it, we're laughing about it, but the seriousness is this. We talked about several things. We talked about the indoctrination of how we get conditioned as a young child. Clean your plate, right? We also see the older men. They get the big piece of chicken. They get the bigger plate, and so we aspire to be that when we get older. Hey, I want to be that person. Then we become, if we played some sports or when we're younger, we have a higher metabolism. So things that we ate didn't impact us as much as they do now. And so we tend to keep those habits even as our body starts changing as we age.
So this man, you put it right by the rim. So what happens is what you're talking about is the big piece of chicken. It symbolizes all of that food that we would eat in excess. What happens is the body only has a certain amount of food that it needs, and food is energy. Only has a certain amount of food that the body actually needs to function. What happens to that extra energy? A lot of it is excreted, or we get rid of it, or it's stored. How is it stored? It's stored in the body as fat. It's stored in the bloodstream as cholesterol. What happens with all this extra luggage and energy laying around is what's called inflammation. inflammation all over the body. And inflammation manifests as pain. It manifests as organs and systems not being able to function as they normally would because things are swollen or there are things impeding the normal pathway. What does that really mean? What is all that mumbo jumbo I just said? It leads to the next slide. What can it cause?
What can we cause? So we've got some consequences of overeating. So if you're just joining us, you're watching Get Fit, Get Moving here with Doc Griggs, and we are talking about the big piece of chicken, why men overeat. So we've given some reasonings why men overeat. Now we're going to talk about what are those consequences.
Man, why am I conditioned? Every time you say the big piece of chicken, my mouth waters, and I either taste Popeyes or Churchill or my grandma's chicken, that breast that I always wanted and my granddad always got. But my mouth waters when you say that, man. That's bad.
It is. That's conditioning, right? We have been conditioned. It went from the other day I was ordering some lunch, and they had the offer.
Yeah.
2-piece or they want the 4-piece.
Or the 4-piece.
Now my mind says, I literally had a battle of I should probably get the 2-piece. I'm trying to drop a few pounds and been gaining weight. I probably should get this 2-piece. It's only lunch. It's overeating. So I'm having this in my head.
Yeah.
And then I ordered the 4-piece.
Yeah, you did. You did.
I ordered the 4-piece.
You did.
So that's the frailty. And so we're having this internal battle. So it takes discipline to make the changes. But we're going to give you some reasons why right now as to why you should stop overeating. But
the first step, you just made the first step. And that's what we're trying to do with this conversation is A, acknowledgement, and B, showing that you're not alone in all this. We all grew up in the same Big Mama's house. Yep. Eating the same stuff, so we can all get through this together. Consequences of overeating.
Okay, so here is gout. So explain what gout is, because some people may not understand what gout is.
It's the buildup of uric acid crystals. What happened back in the early centuries, the days of the medieval times when they had kings and queens, it was the people that had resources. The rich had rich diets. They were able to eat more meat, more seafood, and those things that are richer in these purines that leave uric acid crystals, and they can cause what's called gout. These crystals that form, you feel them in your joints. They can damage your kidneys and damage the body, but that's why they say gout is a disease of the rich.
Yep. And I had
alcohol.
I've had a couple of friends that had gout, and they were rich.
Disease of excess, gout. High blood pressure. Oh, yes. Once you talk about inflammation, you can get inflammation in the blood vessels. You can get the excess weight can increase your blood pressure. The stress and anxiety of all of this can cause an increase in blood pressure. What happens is, if you want to think of it in simple terms, the more food you put into your body, the more the machines have to work to break it down. The more the machines have to work to break it down, the higher your blood pressure is. Temporarily, usually, if it's a moderate amount of food. But if you're constantly digesting food, your body's always going to be working, which means your blood pressure, in its simplest terms, will be up.
Absolutely. And then we talk about when we add that fact that Black Americans Black people on the African diaspora have a sensitivity to sodium. And we're putting a lot of salt in our food, then that could add to it. And we're overeating, and it's high in sodium.
Which is don't necessarily have the consequence of high blood pressure can be a bad thing of overeating, but having hypertension was a selected mechanism during Middle Passage. It started there. If you didn't have something to retain sodium, keep your blood pressure up, you didn't make it. Once you got here, you were probably killed because you weren't able to do your work. Those that were left passed on the genes. The less we exercise, the less we burn off, and I'm going back to the energy again, not going down a rabbit hole, bringing a rabbit to you, the more we're able to burn off the energy after healthy amounts of food, the more we're able to keep it stabilized. But this is not punishment. This is something that we can control or live with.
Absolutely. Next up, high cholesterol.
Cholesterol is I want you to look at cholesterol as stored fat in the bloodstream. It's excess energy. There's an enzyme called HMG-CoA reductase that sits around at night, breaks down, takes the food that you eat after 3 hours before you go to bed, and it puts it up. Where does it put it up? It puts it in your bloodstream, which is why when we came out with the statins, they told you to take it at night because that's when it was around the most. It worked third shift. So they want you to take the drug to decrease the cholesterol when you take it third shift.
Absolutely, and I can speak to. So we had a heart specialist on a while ago. We did this program, and she said basically your body produces cholesterol. Your liver cholesterol is produced in your liver, so you don't need to get a tremendous amount of cholesterol in your diet because your body is already producing it. So and it produces it from other factors. So really try to reduce that. But in men in particular, it can stick in that heart and really cause some significant problems, as we know that's the number one cause of death.
Jam up the air works during in the bloodstreams, can cause the heart attacks, blocking off the bloodstream, decrease the blood flow. You end up with a heart attack, stroke, or other diseases.
All right, here's the next one: chronic kidney disease.
Chronic kidney disease. So as the blood vessels, as they go from your heart, they get smaller and smaller, including your kidneys. That's where things are filtered out. The kidney is a delicate membrane of a delicate filter of a membrane. If you can imagine a tissue. If you elevate the blood pressure and start shooting water through the tissue, it punches holes in it. And that's basically what happens to your kidney. You damage it. If you elevate your blood sugar by eating too much food, sugar particles in the bloodstream can be large. They can damage the kidneys. Excess protein can damage the kidneys. Chronic means that it won't necessarily heal. So you want to preserve your kidney function as much as possible and avoid dialysis.
Absolutely, yeah. And the two things that are really diabetes is a big part. So as you're talking about the sugar, diabetes is if you have diabetes, you should be making sure maintaining and monitoring your kidney health because they go hand in hand. They cousin.
Yes.
Okay.
It's more than a little sugar. It's a lot of sugar. And they can do a lot of damage. Yeah.
Next up, obesity. Right.
Oh. So, man, we're going to call it what it is. Obesity, right? We all have a little bit more weight. We need to destigmatize and de-vilify making it fat. Body's made up of proteins, carbs, fats, water, and makes its own cholesterol. We need a certain amount of body fat to be healthy. I want you to look at obesity as too much stored energy. We need to burn it off. That's why you exercise, to help burn it off, and you eat less food. And you like that little jig?
Yeah, I like that. That was nice. So yeah. I was one of my things I always tell people when we talk about obesity is a diagnosis, not a description, right? And yes. So we have to understand that if you got it, if you're diagnosed with obesity, you can get over it, you can get rid of it, but you've got to put in the work. So please make sure it's a diagnosis, not a description. Also, if you would, please, Doc, just help people understand when they get that little extra poundage around their midsection, what are the two types of fat? Because I know people want to see that six pack. We talked about that earlier. What are the two types of fat that sit in that midsection area? Yeah,
so the worst is brown fat that's in the body. It's called we call it intra-abdominal fat. The fat that's in between the organs of your abdomen, in the intestines, in that area, that's the bad fat. That fat interferes with processes that need to take place, the body's normal functioning processes. The less of that we have, the better. Men, we tend to take on this ovoid shape, an egg shape, and that's where it tends to collect the excess calories that we take in. Man, I'm trying. So Ellis is smiling. I'm saying I keep not patting mine. I'm thinking it's going to go down the more I press it. You're not alone. But here's the deal. You can't outwork a bad diet, and you can't outwork overconsumption. The most calories you'll burn, the average person will burn is 600 to 900 calories. That's the equivalent of maybe 2-3 slices of pizza in an hour. So it has to be a combination of diet, modification, and exercise to protect your heart and help burn the calories.
All right. Next up, cancer.
Yeah, so the state of inflammation created by by overeating, which can lead to obesity. The inflammation everywhere, the excess calories can cause obesity everywhere. That inflammation can lead to what causes the cancerous states, systems and organs not functioning the way that they should.
Absolutely.
Cancer is nothing but the over multiplication of cells. The cells multiply and they don't turn off. They're your cells.
Yep. And then cancer cells, I learned this back in biology. Cancer cells do not have contact inhibition. So typical cells, when they touch each other, they stop growing. Cancer cells don't have that ability, so they just keep growing. And that's how you get tumors and lumps and things like that, because they just keep growing. They don't know how to stop. So that was something that stuck with me from back in the day. All right, sleep apnea.
All right, so if your neck size, guys, is greater than 17 and you snore, and someone tells you that is, look, and then you take 2 fingers, you got to pull it out. You're like this trying to tie it.
Will you have to swallow to button your shirt? the Adam's apple out the way.
Yeah. Sleep apnea, it's exactly that. It's obstruction of the airway, particularly when you take the head and you lay it down. Your tongue is a large organ. It falls back. If there's fat on your neck, it falls back. You stop breathing. And sleep apnea can be a series of stopping breathing. Your brain signals you to wake up, and you wake up several times in the middle of the night. That cortisol, those epinephrine bursts, can cause damage to your heart and can lead to stroke and heart attack and other things. So if you snore, get a sleep test. If your neck is larger than 17 inches, anything that obstructs your airway, causes you to not get proper sleep, get through the 4 stages, can be problematic and sometimes sadly fatal.
Absolutely. And also in terms of if you're trying to lose weight, getting the proper amount of rest for it to maintain your health is important. So if you're constantly waking up throughout the night because of sleep apnea, you're not getting the rest, you're not getting that REM sleep that you need, those cycles that you need each night to have your body kind of purge itself of all the impurities and go through. So really, this becomes very, very problematic for those.
Stage 4 sleep is where growth hormone goes around and does its repair. If you keep waking up in the middle of the night, your body's like, wait, let me put this up. If it's trying to metabolize anything, let me put this up. Let me store this. And you'll find yourself getting larger and larger because your body's trying to protect you. And it's also trying to work with you. All right, he's going to keep waking up 100 times. We're just going to start packing all this stuff up. And it can shift your whole method and mode of metabolizing energy.
Which is why they say don't eat and then go right to sleep. Is you give your time to your body at least an hour or so before so your body can digest before you go to sleep. That's why you've got to cut out alcohol and caffeine before you go to bed, all of those things like that, because you want your body to be able to function on what it's supposed to do when you're sleeping, and that is to rest, repair, and restore.
I think we should do a full sleep show, a whole sleep show. Started from the bottom and stay here. Yeah.
And finally here, as we wrap it up, for the consequences of overeating, depression and anxiety. Nobody thinks that you can have a consequence of depression and anxiety from overeating, but let's talk about that, Doc.
Yeah, so, the whole thing can be frustrating. Ellis, I've been on a diet and it's worked, and then gone back to the diet and it hasn't worked. It can turn into this vicious cycle to where your self-image, you start to feel guilty. The first thing we tell people to do in the morning is look, when you're brushing your teeth, look in the mirror, smile, and forgive yourself. Because whatever you did yesterday is history. Tomorrow is a mystery. Be smile and be present for today. We are not alone. We all grow up in the same house, Big Mama's house. Just don't spill nothing on her carpet, and don't keep running in and out the house, letting all the good air out.
Let the air out.
You're going to stay in or stay out. One or the other.
Absolutely. And so you're right. Every time we break a promise to ourselves, it erodes our self-confidence, right? And our ability to be successful. And so we have to make sure that it doesn't get to the point where it becomes pathological and it's really eroding our ability. Then we can start that overeating, and then we really get caught in that cycle. Depression can lead to overeating, anxiety can lead to overeating, and now you're going to obesity, and it just...
all the other things that we listed prior to this, which is why we left it for last. Stop the cycle now. You're not alone. You got us right here. Look.
Every other Tuesday, man, that was fantastic. It was fast paced, but we got to do it all. So here it is, fellas. And this is my last statement in the document. I'm gonna send it off to you for our kickoff. Guys, I recognize, I understand. I grew up wanting that big piece of chicken my whole entire life. But understand that big piece of chicken can literally be killing you. So what you've got to do is get with your primary care physician, know your numbers, know your blood pressure, your cholesterol, your PSA. If you're for men with your prostate, you got to know your waist circumference. That's another indicator of being unhealthy. Know your waist circumference, know your numbers, and work with your doctor in terms of getting a plan that's best for you. And you got to set those old conditioning down. I know it's hard. I do the same thing. I just told you a story. I ordered 4 pieces and I'm full. I know it's full.
Why do you keep talking about chicken, man? My mouth keep watering. And you know what's funny is I always see a ear of corn with some butter falling off the side with that big old piece of chicken. And I might go.
It's delicious.
I'm not going to rehab. I'm not going to do it.
And I felt guilty, right? So we talked about that depression and anxiety. Guilt is part of anxiety. It inspire some anxiety, and I start thinking about it a little bit more. Cortisol level goes up. So all of these things can cascade. So just saying, get with your primary care physician, know your numbers, and do the best you can as we try to let down the mentality of the big piece of chicken. Doc, take us home.
So as always, fellas, our message again, look, don't feel guilty about eating the big piece of chicken, but we want you to get checked. Go to your doctor, know your numbers, and talk to your family. Get fit. Fitness begins with food. And, if you eat half the big piece of chicken and put it up for the next meal so you can be the big man at the next meal. And then finally, find something that you like to do and do it. Get checked, get fit, get moving. Thank y'all. We really appreciate you joining us because this is what we do and why we do it.
And we are signing off, and we will see y'all in 2 weeks or the next. We'll see y'all next time.